Who Are the Rebels? By Moses David. Written March the 8th, 1970. Letter number E. So you say the youth of today are rebels. Rebellious, defiant, lawbreakers, and seeking to destroy society. But really, who are the rebels? We or you, our parents? The kids are rebellious against society because the society is anti-God. Everything the kids are, the way they look, the way they act, in a large degree it's a rebellion against the pattern of society. But it's a return, actually, to the Lord's pattern. How can they rebel against God's laws? How can they rebel against His word? They don't know it. But their parents did, and they rebelled just like the children of Israel. The parents were the rebels. Only the children were allowed in the promised land. What is the hair? The hair is the return to the fashion that has held for ages. People never cut their hair until the past 100 years. Men had beards. They never started shaving until 50 years ago. The people wore robes thousands of years before they began wearing these other odd clothes. About the Renaissance, they began wearing hosen tights. Sandals and bare feet were popular throughout the ages. What are the parents complaining about? They're complaining that their children are returning to the customs of their forefathers. It's the parents who are the rebels. The kids want to return to the pattern of the cooperative, socialistic, communal living of the tribalism of their forefathers. That's the most ancient and the longest lasting of any economic system. The economic system of tribalism. Ancient socialism. The parents want them to follow in their footsteps in a selfish dog-eat-dog economy, in which they not only murder one another, but they conduct massive slaughters of whole nations. Their parents don't want to be exposed as being rebels themselves, so they have to try to restrain their children from being rebels. Destroy not the ancient landmarks that thy fathers have set up. The parents have destroyed the ancient landmarks and set up their more recent ones, and are griping because their children want to return to the ancient ones, in their appearance and dress and economic outlook. 3 things that have set the youth of today apart are their looks, their economic philosophy, and their religious philosophy. Here the young people are sick and fed up with what really amounts to a pagan, cruel, whoremongering, false Christianity. They're trying to return to the peace-loving religions of old, including ancient Christianity, and the parents will have none of it. The final thing that really gets the parents is their children are really rebelling against not only them, but the fake society they've created. The false religion, false economy, hypocritical dress and appearance. So they're turning to peace-loving Buddhism and Confucianism. In the absence of any spiritual reality in the hypocritical, fake religions of their parents, be they so-called Christians, their children have, in their pursuit of genuine spirituality and real religion and the actual supernatural and the miraculous, gone into drugs, into ancient mysticism, drugs, and the spirit world. So who are the rebels? If you mean rebels against the gods or the customs or the looks of the ancients and the economy of the ancients, then the parents are the rebels. If you mean rebels against this recent, modern, plastic, artificial, man-made, gadget-filled, money-crazy, whoremongering, sex-mad, religiously hypocritical society of the parents of today. Yes, we, the youth of today, are rebels and revolutionists, and we want to return to the old, tried and proven ways of our patriarchs and ancient forefathers. We want to return to the patterns of Noah and Abraham and Moses and the judges and kings like David and Solomon and the prophets of old. Indeed, the pattern of Jesus Christ himself and his disciples and the martyrs of the church. That's what we want to return to. And we rebel with all that is in us against the so-called civilization of Darwin and evolution and the atheists and the pseudo-scientists and the ridiculous contraptions and pollution, unhealthful living, unnatural dress, unnatural appearance, and the selfishness of self-destructing capitalism with its hellish wars and fiendish weapons. Who were the rebels? Noah and his family, who refused to conform to the pattern of society of his day and expected it to reign for the first time in history, to destroy it and build for themselves the only possible way of escape, or the worldwide society which God destroyed because of its rebellion against him. Who were the rebels? Abraham and his family, because he refused to conform to the law-breaking society of Babylon, the great confusion, and fled the country to find refuge in peace in a strange land. Or the defiant Babylonians of the confusion of Babel. Who were the rebels? Moses and the children of Israel, who refused to bow down to the gods, the devil gods of ancient Egypt. Slaves who stripped their masters of their wealth and fled across the Red Sea into the wilderness. Or God-defying Pharaoh and the devil-worshipping Egyptians who pursued them and were drowned by an act of God. Who were the rebels? The younger generation of Israel, who had the faith to go in and take the promised land away from the giants at the border of Kadesh Barnea. Or the older Jews, who refused to believe God and preferred to wander another 40 years in the wilderness to their deaths, so that only their children were finally permitted to enter in the promised land. Who were the rebels? The backslidden, Baal-worshipping, abomination-ridden, older generation of Jews of Gideon's day? Or young Gideon, who went out at night and tore down their idols, and chopped down their groves, and threw down their altars, and tried to destroy violently their false religious system with his own hands at the bidding of the angel of God? Who was the rebel against God? Gideon, or his society in which he lived? Who were the rebels? The God-hating Philistines who tried to destroy the pitiful little so-called uncivilized tribes of Israel in the mountains? Or Samson and his kind, who were willing to sacrifice their lives to destroy the temples and the gods and the idol-worshippers of Philistia? Every revival, or reformation, or revolution, they've always been called the rebels. But they're not the rebels. It's the society in which they were living that were the true rebels, the rebels against God. Who was the rebel? Young David and his band of malcontents in the cave of Adullam, hunted by the government of the king? Or the disobedient, God-disappointing, stubborn Saul, king of Israel? Who were the rebels? Jeremiah, Baruch, Ebed-melech, the Ethiopian with the message of destruction, of the judgments of God and predictions of their nation's defeat at the hands of its enemies, and their warning to submit or die? Or the God-defying church leaders who put him in bonds, and the law-breaking government officials who cast him into prison? Who were the rebels? Nehemiah and his Jews rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem on the orders of the king, and in defiance of the local officials and neighboring systems, or the traitorous liars Sanballat and Tobiah. The devil's plan is to accuse others of the things he himself is actually guilty of, to accuse the saints of things for which he is really to blame, and to so completely reverse ideas and thoughts and viewpoints that the result is the exact opposite of the truth. Who were the rebels? The carpenter of Nazareth, and his odd bunch of long-haired, bearded, robed, and barefooted, system-defying disciples? Or their sanctimonious, hypocritical, God-defying religious persecutors? So many examples where the real rebels were the system, and the so-called rebels were the ones really trying to conform to the will of God. Who were the rebels? The martyrs of the early church who preferred to die in flames as living torches, with their bones crunched by the mouths of wild beasts, rather than to bow down to the gods of Rome, or their savage, antichrist Roman persecutors and slaughterers. Who were the rebels? The God-fearing, courageous reformers, and those seeking to return the church to the ways of God and the Bible, such as Savonarola, and Martin Luther, and John Calvin, and Tyndale, and Knox, and Penn, and Wesley, and a host of others. Who were the rebels? They, or the damnable, hellish, diabolical, fiendish, devilish, antichrist, anti-God systems against which they rebelled, rather than to rebel against God? Who were the rebels? The early American pioneers who left the horrors of religious tyranny in Europe and the murderous monarchies of their day to find religious and political peace and freedom in so-called savage America. Or the so-called God-defying civilizations of the old world from which they fled. And who are the real rebels of today? Really, now. The poor, groping, wandering, God-ignorant youth of today, with their pitiful endeavors to return to the beautiful and ancient looks, dress, appearance, customs, cooperative society, and peace-loving religions of yesterday. Nay, a million yesterdays. Or their God-forsaken, Bible-hating, antichrist, selfish, peace-defying, law-breaking, man-killing parents of today. You say the hippie generation are rebellious, defiant, and law-breaking, seeking the destruction of our society, my friend. If you mean rebelling against the hypocrisy of its religion, defying its unbelief in the supernatural, and seeking to destroy its abominable idols, and return to the God from whence we came, and the godlike customs and appearances and tribalism of our revered patriarchal forefathers, then yes, we are rebels, and thank God for it. But we think in the eyes of God, and by the standards of His Word, we are the true lovers of peace, and love, and truth, and beauty, and God, and freedom. Whereas you, our parents, are the most God-defying, commandment-breaking, insanely rebellious rebels of all time, who are on the brink of destroying and polluting all of us and our world if we do not rise up against you in the name of God and try to stop you from your suicidal madness of total genocide. You, my dear parents, are the greatest rebels against God and His Word and His ways, not us. And unto you will be the greater condemnation. For how can we rebel against a God whom we know not, whose words you never taught us, whose ways you never showed us, and you denied Him? You heard His word, but heeded it not. You were shown His ways, but followed them not. It is you, my dear parents, who are the real rebels of this generation, not us, who are seeking to find him, searching his word for the truth, and endeavoring to follow the simple paths of his ancient disciples. It is you who have rebelled against him, and not us. It is you who have defied him, and taught us to do so. It is you who have broken his laws, and yet want us to abide by yours. To hell with your devilish system. May God damn your unbelieving hearts. It were better that a millstone be hung around your neck, and you be cast into the midst of the sea, than to have caused one of these little ones to stumble. You were the real rebels, my dear parents, and the worst of all time. God is going to destroy you and save us, as we rebel against your wickedness, deny your ungodliness, break your unscriptural traditions, and destroy your idolatrous system in the name of God Almighty. As in the words of God, through Jeremiah, to root out, to break down, and destroy the damnable doctrines and delusions of the devil, and to build and to plant the beautiful, Christ-loving kingdom of peace. And you cannot stop us, for God is with us, and not with you. For you are the real rebels against God, and everything godly, including his kingdom of peace. Repent, or perish in hell on earth you, our parents, have created, not us. Because of your unbelief, not one of you will enter into the promised land of heaven on earth. But we, your children, have found faith in the God you denied us, and we are determined to enter in spite of you, in spite of your rebellion against God. You are the real rebels. We are his followers, and you are so blind that you cannot even see it. May God have mercy on your rebellious souls. Prophecy given immediately afterward. For truly, this is a wicked and adulterous and rebellious generation, which I shall destroy in order that I might save their children from the sins of their fathers. Truly, they have rebelled against me, and cast me aside, and have thrust away my word, and have fought against me, and have defied me, and have broken my commandments, the commandments of Moses my servant, and would have none of me. But I that sit in the heavens shall laugh in the day of their calamity, and I shall have them in derision in the day of their destruction. Have I called, and they would not answer? And I pled, and they would not hearken? Behold, I stretched forth my hand all the day long, and they heeded it not. Therefore shall they die in their own sins, for they have destroyed themselves. And therefore shall they perish, for indeed they rebelled against me, their Creator. But these shall remember me in the days of their youth, and these shall I remember in the hour of their distress, when the evil days come, saith the Lord.